Tyler Matzik, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Got a pretty good team this year. You guys are currently a Wildcard team. You know, knocking on the door of first place in the National League East. How do you feel about this team?
I think we had a great team. I think we got a great chance. Because our starting pitching's been doing great. Our lineup's banging. Bullpen's been doing a pretty good job. So we just stay this course. I think we have a very good chance of winning this division. And when that happens, hopefully we get a good spot in the in the tournament, and we can take the trophy again.
If they can win in Atlanta, if they can perform in Atlanta and get some of those games back, which I believe they can, then the Braves could set themselves up for success. They can make a run in September.
This is Matt Olson. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Well, this is when the Braves are going to catch the Mets. This is when the Braves are really going to make a drive to catch up to the Mets in the division. Because, earlier in the year they had a 10.5 game lead. It was a different perspective. Now, the Braves have already caught the Mets. And I know they're a half game back, but they've caught the Mets. That being said, this is their last chance right here, this couple of week stretch, for them to get ready for that series with the Mets in Atlanta. This is a chance for them to either add on to their lead if they're leading, again, take the lead again, or a chance to extend their lead, whatever the case may be. This is their last chance to bolster whatever they're going to have going into the series with the Mets in Atlanta. This is it.
Hi, this is Phil Necro. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
I think this is a very good team. I think they can make a run at a postseason. They're well in the wild card race right now. But that being said, if you want to set yourself up for, a profitable postseason, I look at it and I look at October right now, and I think you got to win the division.
I'm Luke Jackson. You're On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Luke, you've been one of us this year. You've been a fan this year.
Yeah, it's been different.
Tell me what you see out of this current Braves team.
They're just as good or better than last year. Like, they're clicking on all cylinders, 1 through 9. The back end of the lineup is just absolutely incredible right now. Starting pitching's great, bullpen's great. I mean, they're proving it. Like, the record's going to be, insane. We're hunting down the Mets right now. Couple big series coming up, so we can get some traction, get going. The guys look good, and I'm excited. I hate off days, though. As a fan, it's the worst, man.
It is the worst, but it means I can come interview you guys, so I'm thrilled with it.
This is Kyle Wright, and you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
That's obviously the most important series going forward. No doubt about it. You get swept there, it could be detrimental to the season either way. If you lose that series, it could be detrimental to the season. Heck, the Braves may have to sweep that series. The Mets may have to sweep that series. Whatever the case may be, that series is the biggest series of the year for both teams.
Hello, baseball fans. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome in On Deck. I'm Tyler Redmond. As always, thank you so much for checking out the channel. I do appreciate it. We are here, guys, and we are, if you haven't noticed, we are on a brand new set. So, of course, we will talk about that in just a few minutes. But we got some important things to talk about when it comes to Braves baseball. What an exciting time it is to be a Braves fan. The Braves are gearing up for what should be a postseason matchup, and it feels like postseason baseball, but it will be the Braves taking on the New York Mets starting tomorrow night. And it's going to be an exciting series. It's going to be the biggest series of the year for both teams. Both the Braves and the Mets have everything on the line. If the series goes too far one way, it spells disaster for the other team. Spencer Strider, unfortunately, at the worst time possible, had an oblique injury. He is out for the regular season, which means he is out for the series. He should be gearing up to take on whoever we have in the postseason, whether that be in the Wildcard series or the NLDS. Whatever case may be, he should be ready for that. But going into this series versus the Mets, Spencer Strider will be out. So take that under consideration. Again, a terrible time for him. He has been just a rookie sensation. He's in the Rookie of the Year conversation. And Spencer Strider has been downright phenomenal. That being said, we are sending a dog out for Game 3. Charlie Morton will be taking him out in Game 3. And guys, look, Charlie has struggled this year. I think we all know that, whether that be age, whether that be battling back from the injury he had last year, whatever the case may be, Charlie has struggled here lately. He's struggled really throughout the year. He's got a above 4 ERA, which is something that is not typical of Charlie. And really recently, he hasn't seemed to have it all the way. Going into this series, that is cause for concern because of frankly, all the stakes involved, all of the competition we're going to have in the Mets, of course, with their pitching staff. So it does raise some concern. But look, guys, we just need Charlie Morton to pitch a good game. At the end of the day, that's all we're asking for. We're not asking for, a 6-inning shutout, start. We're asking for, give me 6 innings with 2 runs minimum, right? And he's going up against, Scherzer, I believe. So at the end of the day, I need Charlie Morton to have his best game of the year this week. That's how I feel. The Braves, again, sending out Fried, Wright, and Morton. And the Mets will be sending out DeGrom, Bassett, and Scherzer. At the end of the day, guys, you want to know who I lean to, who I think has the advantage. I think on paper with numbers alone, the advantage has got to be towards the Mets. Just by name value, you're sending out Jacob DeGrom, you're sending out Scherzer, and when you do that, everybody's going to assume that the Mets are going to, are going to win. That being said, I look at this and I say, well, how have the Braves played at home versus the road against the Mets? It's been radically different. The Braves just in the month of August, the first series against the Mets in August was in New York. The Braves played absolutely terrible. They lost 4 out of 5. 2 weeks later, the Braves take on the Mets in Atlanta, home field advantage. And I'm going to tell you, the crowd makes a difference. And I've seen it in action. I've seen it happen. The crowd definitely does make a difference. So keep that in mind. I really think that the home field advantage is going to come through here. Every game is sold out. By the way, weather is a non-factor at this point, and I think that's really going to make an impact. We have seen Charlie Morton specifically lock in when the time is right. We have seen Fried lock in when the time is right. There is no bigger series in the regular season than this series right here. So we will see. And I also wanted to mention that, in a perfect world, the Braves would sweep this series. That, if you're a Braves fan, the Braves would sweep this series. That would give them a lead headed into the final series against the Marlins. But at minimum, they've got to win 2 out of 3 to win the division, in my opinion. You go into the last series, the Mets have the Nationals, the Braves have the Marlins, and anything can happen, sure. But to me, for the Braves to win the division, they've got to at least win 2 out of 3. But that's just to give them a chance, because keep in mind, if the Braves tie the Mets, and that's by winning 2 out of 3, things are going to get interesting, because both the Mets and the Braves take on, again, lackluster teams to conclude the season. Right now, the Mets have a 9-7 record against Atlanta head-to-head. That matters. The reason being, under the new postseason format, there is no tiebreaker effective this year. The team with more wins head-to-head will win the division under a tie. So unless the Braves were to sweep the Mets this weekend, they would have that advantage headed into the final series of the year. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Mets are going to win the division if the Braves don't sweep them. And that would be a tall task, because they still have to win more games than the Braves in the final series. The head-to-head tiebreaker rule only matters if the Braves and the Mets finish on a tie in the standings. And for there to be any real chance of the Braves winning the division, they have to win this series. Make no mistake about it, they have to. And that's what's really important about this series, the postseason implications. Make no mistake, the Braves and the Mets are both headed to the postseason. In one shape or form, they are both headed there. This is essentially about placement in the tournament. This is essentially about where you're going to be at. You win the division, you get to rest pitchers and face a team that's gassed. And that can have a major effect. If you remember last year, Game 1 against the Dodgers was a bullpen game for the Dodgers. I was there. I remember thinking as I drove to the stadium that Max Scherzer was going to be taking the mound and Braves were going to have their work cut out for him. And it turned out that that wasn't the case. It was bullpen piece after bullpen piece. I believe Tony Gonsolin eventually came out and threw some innings, but it was essentially a bullpen game. And that is because in the wild card game against the Giants, Scherzer pitched the 9th and was gassed by the time he hit Atlanta. He could not pitch Game 1. Eventually, he pitched Game 2, still didn't seem to have all of it, and it led to a major advantage falling the Braves' way. That's how big this of an effect this can have going into the postseason. So, what lies ahead for the Braves? Another deep run into the postseason, a wild card appearance, and nothing more. We are going to find out soon enough. But let's hear from you. We are here. I got the comments up. I'm going to talk to you, get all your questions answered as best of my ability as I can. So make sure to get them in, and we'll answer as many of them as we can. Again, super chats do have priority, and that is essentially you get to be first in line. So if you have a question, make sure to get it in, and we will answer it as quickly as we can. I'm here tonight, guys. I have nowhere to be. I'm gonna answer as many questions as I can. So if you have something to get off your mind, let me know. I'm here. Yasuki Knight says, hey man. Jonathan tunes in. He says hello. William says, let's go. It's a big weekend. It's the biggest weekend. Make no mistake about it. The biggest weekend. Blake is tuning in. He says, here we go. A lot of comments on the set, so I guess I should go ahead and mention it. Yeah, we got a new set. I don't know, I'm very happy with it. I have to thank my parents. They really helped out. My dad spent hours helping me put this together. I'm excited about it, guys. This is all because of you, though. At the end of the day, with your support, we've been able to grow this channel. We've been able to make it bigger. We've been able to make it better, and I can't be happier with it. So this is the new home of On Deck. This is where we will be, and it's a major upgrade if you're asking me. So I think it's great. It's I'll tell you, I've had it for a few days up and ready to go, but I've been sitting over there just looking at it. I've just been so happy with it, and I've had a picture of it. I've been looking at it when I'm not here. I'm thrilled with how this turned out. We're going to continue to upgrade it, probably improve some things, minimal things, but this is currently the new home of On Deck. We may add some new camera shots. We may do a few more things. But again, this is because of you. This is because of your support. This is because of you watching the videos, you liking the videos, subscribing, all of that. So if you're new to the community, make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, all that stuff. It really does help out. And everything that you super chat goes to one fund, and it helps fund everything we do here. So again, this right here is because of you, and I can't thank you all enough. So let's talk about baseball, shall we? Let's see. Yasuki Knight says, we'll see what happens this weekend. It will be interesting. Yeah, this, again, has a postseason feel. It reminds me, I have completely different scenario here. The Braves are behind, but if you remember last year, the Braves and the Phillies, had a late series, and it's where the Braves clinched the division. I was there. It had a postseason environment feel, and it was a big deal. And the Braves were leading going into that series. All they had to do was put the Phillies away. This is a little different, but it has that same feel. This is the most, how do I put this? This is the most feeling of a postseason that you're going to get in the regular season. You have some of the best pitchers in the game taking the mound. You have one of the best lineups, in my opinion, for the Braves, and two of the best teams. The Mets are a very complete team. The Braves are a very complete team. That being said, this is going to be a great matchup, and that's really what we come to see. A lot of people... I talk to a lot of fans, and they get scared of games like this. They're like, oh, I can't watch. Guys, this is what we watch the game for. Games like this. Games that, take your breath away. Games that have moments, even if it's heartbreaking moments. These are the games that we watch the game for. This is going to be exciting baseball. This is going to be one of the best series of the year. At least right now, that's how I'm feeling about it. So we will see. So thank you. I believe it was Yasuki Knight. Thank you for that. Let's see. Oh, yeah, okay, so they changed it on me. Okay, Jake Hobby says they changed it to DeGrom. Sorry about that, guys. Those graphics are made well in advance. I did not get that memo. I apologize for that. So DeGrom will be taking on Fried. That's a better matchup if you're asking me. I think that's very exciting, actually. That just adds to the stakes. Maybe, I haven't seen an update. Maybe they bump up Scherzer a day. It'll be Kyle Wright, Scherzer. I haven't seen the update. But if game one is DeGrom, I think it's interesting. And part of that may be so they can get DeGrom out of the way. I mentioned his struggles lately. Maybe they can just stick him out there, see how it goes, and have probably a more rested pin if they need it, because Bassett has been a little bit more reliable. Scherzer has been a little bit more reliable. But I mentioned a few weeks ago that the Mets are just as injury-filled as the Braves have been. Ozzie Albies is out. Strider's now out. The Braves have been battling some of that. Scherzer was hurt a couple of weeks ago. Now DeGrom doesn't seem to have it. He's pitching a little differently, pitching, out of his comfort zone a bit. Whatever the case may be, we will see. To be honest with you, I hope that the Mets are at their A game, and I hope the Braves are able to beat them at their A game. That's what we want to see. And I will also say this. Marcell Ozuna is hitting at the right time. Eddie Rosario is hitting at the right time. Olsen is heating up a bit now. Ronald Acuna Jr. is heating up. He had a 2-homer game the other day. Olsen, he needed the Nationals trip. He needed that. The one guy that's been a little off lately that I hope breaks out in this series would probably be Austin Riley. He's had a lot of balls hit hard, right at people, things like that. Unluckiness. Hopefully, it'll pay off come this series. But we will see. Courtney Conaway says, if we lose a game this series, we should give up on the division and rest for the playoffs. I get what you're saying. If we lose one, I don't agree. If we lose two, I would agree with that. If we lose one, I don't, because if we lose one, we then tie, right? We're tied. If we only lose one game, we are tied. We don't want to just throw it out. If we lose one and we win the other two, then we can still win the division. That can happen. And, the Braves are, again, going to face the Marlins. The Mets are going to face the Nationals. Both of those teams are very beatable, and anything can happen. The Mets lost to the A's the other day with DeGrom having a 3-run lead. Anything is possible, guys. So just keep that in mind. Now, if the Braves were to get swept, if the Braves were to lose 2 out of 3, then I think, you may see, nobody really pushing it that hard. But as of right now, it's full throttle. You're talking about the difference of, being able to set your rotation for the NLDS or for the wild card. That is a big difference, especially now that the wild card is 3 games. That is a major difference. And if you can go into the NLDS rested, it is a major advantage. It's part of the way the Braves won the World Series last year. So just keep that in mind, Courtney. I get what you're saying. I don't think 1 game is enough, though. Maybe 2, definitely 3, but not 1. That's kind of where I would say on that. Blake Newsom said he would like to see Kyle Muller out of the pen this weekend. Not a bad idea. Kyle Muller was actually sent down, I believe, today. That did happen. Kyle did not get sent down because he had a bad appearance. Kyle got sent down because they're not planning to start him for the rest of the way, I don't believe. And they brought up, I think, Bracho. So they're prioritizing the bullpen headed into the Mets series, and that's fine. Kyle Muller's not a bullpen piece, guys. He's a starter. Blake, I get what you're saying in times like these, but I think at the end of the day, Kyle Muller is built to be a starter, and I think the Braves believe in that. I don't think they want to pull him out of the pen. Now, it can still happen, but just keep in mind he got sent down today, so I don't think the likelihood of that is high. That being said, something that I wanted to mention was this right here. What are the chances that Bryce Elder gets pulled in to start a postseason game or gets pulled in to be in the pen? What are the chances, right? You're possibly down Strider. You don't know quite what that is. Jake Odorizzi hasn't been, necessarily a solid 5th starter, especially if you go to a wild card series. This could happen. I mean, he's got a 2.76 ERA on the year, 42 strikeouts in 49 innings, and a 191 strikeout for walk rate. I think this is actually pretty likely. I really do. I think that this could very well happen, especially in a wild card series situation, or you play the wild card series, you make it through the wild card, then you head to the NLDS. I've been telling people for months that I thought Elder and Muller were the secret weapons that the Braves may just pull up come the postseason time. And you might be sitting there thinking, Tyler, why on earth would they do that if they haven't pitched this guy hardly all year? They've only pulled him up to face the Nationals and the Marlins and the teams to just get by and save the rotation. I get all that. Does anybody remember Game 5 of the World Series last year? Tucker Davidson pitched it. Do you remember that? I think Bryce Elder has far more tools than Tucker did at the time, and I think he could actually be very useful come the postseason. Kyle Muller, for that matter, as well. Kyle Muller's been great in the minors this year. That just goes to show you, how bright the future is for the Braves. But I think that is a possibility. Not a definite, but I think it is a possibility. It's something to keep in mind. We have a super chat, so I'm going to read that real quick. It is from William. What's your 26-man postseason roster? William, I wish I could write it out and tell you right now. Haven't really got that far. We may do that next week. The obvious ones are the current infield and outfield. I think Bryce could be on there. I really do. I think, when I look at the pen right now, it's still a little shaky. It's still not exactly, the best. You may want a guy to be able to come in and just pitch 3 or 4 innings and get by and save, the pen for other games. And I think Bryce Elder would be the biggest surprise on there. Other than that, I think it's going to be pretty standard. I don't think there's anybody down in the minors that's like knocking on the door to be on the roster. It's going to be, obviously, just real quickly, Matt Olson, Ozzie could be back for the postseason roster. That's up for debate, but we'll leave him out for this. Vaughn Grissom, Dansby Swanson, Austin Riley, that's 4 right there. Darno Contreras, that's 6. Your outfield would be Grossman, Rosario, that's 8. Michael Harris, that's 9. Acuna, that's 10. So that's your position player for the most part. If you want to throw in Guillermo Heredia there, A-Ray Adrianza's back. I think you're right around 12. And at the end of the day, after that's pitchers. So you're starting 5, and then whatever bullpen pieces you want to add. That's the best I can give you right now, William. I'm sorry, I know you super chatted. We will do that probably right before the first postseason series. I'll see how everything's shaping up because we still don't know where Ozzie Albies is. We don't know where his health really lies at the moment. We don't know if he's going to be ready for a wild card series or if he's going to be ready for the NLDS. We just don't know. So until we do, it's really hard for me to say. But the basics are known. We know who's pretty much going to be on there. But at the end of the day, I think that you got to take it and just realize the 26-man roster is important, but it's not the end-all be-all. I do think Ozuna is going to be on it. I know some people are going to ask about that. I do think Ozuna is going to be on it. He's really hitting well lately. He's taking every bat like it matters. That is a big difference. And if he can be impactful in the postseason, all is forgiven. So we will see. But for right now, that I can't give you a complete 26-man roster. I wish I could. Chris Kaysen says, nice office. Looks awesome. Thank you very much, Chris. Yeah, okay. Richard Davis says Muller is not on the team. He got sent down today. He still could be on the postseason roster. That still could happen because he is on the 40-man. But, yeah, he's not coming back up after today to the regular season, I don't believe. Bill Gates, he asked a question everybody wants to know. Who do you have for AL MVP, Judge or Ohtani? Which do you value more, a triple crown or 15-game winner from your best hitter? A lot of people have been commenting on this. I saw Chipper commented on it the other day. And honestly, I tend to agree with him. He put it pretty simply. Last year, Ohtani was like an anomaly. And he was just doing things that we've never seen before. And he still is. He's still that same player. But you didn't have a guy, Aaron Judge, who was flirting with the Triple Crown and also tied Maris's record with time left, could break it for the Yankees. And on a first-place team, I personally, this year, I think it's Judge's. However, I do think the conversation for Ohtani is there. I don't think he wins it, but I do think it's there. My brother got a little irritated with me. I don't know if he's watching. He got a little irritated with me because I was playing devil's advocate for Ohtani. Like, well, Ohtani's still the same player he was last year. He's still hitting well, pitching well, and he's doing both. And he's like, no, it's Judge. You're crazy, And I was like, yeah, I know. To me, it's obvious Judge. It's not even close. But that's how I feel. It's going to be a conversation. I think they'll both get votes. I don't think it'll be unanimous. But that speaks to how good both of those individuals are. I mean, for somebody to get any votes with the year that, Judge is having is pretty impressive for Ohtani. But I think if you're asking me straight up, my vote would go to Judge. We have a super chat. He says, this is Johnny T. He says, nice set, Ty. I think Jake will be this year's Rich Rod off the postseason roster. He very well could be. Last year it was kind of a surprise to see Rich Rod off the roster to me. Even though he struggled late in the year, it was still a surprise to me because he was a major asset that we got at the trade deadline. At the trade deadline, we thought Richard Rodriguez was possibly the biggest guy we got because we needed bullpen help, and he was it. He was the one bullpen piece. Jake Odorizzi has been okay. I don't know that I trust him in a World Series. game. I don't know that I trust him in a wild card game. I don't think he'd pitch a wild card game. But I don't want to pitch in game 2 of the NLDS. I mean, and it's no knock on the guy. He's doing all he can. It's not like he's not trying, but it's been hard to watch sometimes. And for Odorizzi, I really look at Bryce Elder, and I look at, who would you rather have on the mound? Right now, for me, I don't know that it's not Bryce Elder. And I know the inexperience is there. I don't want him pitching game 7. But if the Braves, have a lead or, any kind of scenario like that, Bryce Elder would be a viable option. And look, guys, even if Elder came out of the pen to pitch 3 innings, that is a big deal. That is something that could be done. And I mentioned this earlier, it's not unforeseen to pitch a rookie like this in the World Series or anywhere else. Again, Tucker Davidson did it last year. We've seen it in previous years otherwise. That could happen. And with all the talent that the Braves have, Bryce Elder, Kyle Muller, it very well may happen, especially considering all the limitations. If Strider was to not be available out of the, for the starting rotation in the postseason, if whatever the case may be, that could very well happen. So we will see. I don't know if he'll be left off the roster. They may give him some bullpen appearances, but also keep in mind that the Wildcard roster, the NLDS roster, the NLCS roster, and the World Series roster are all different. They're not all one. They're not all one roster. It could be that the Braves say, okay, Odorizzi pitches really well against the Phillies or the Brewers or whoever, or the Padres, whoever we have in the Wildcard race. It could be that. They're going to look at it series by series and pick out the players that they think have the advantage for that series. And you have to keep that in mind as well. So Odorizzi very well could find a spot somewhere. I don't know that it's going to be in a major role. I don't know that I would trust him, to go out in, with the season on the line. I just don't know that I would, trust that completely. But that's just me. So we'll see. That super chat was from Johnny T. Remember, if you want your question answered first, all you got to do is super chat. Guys, do me a favor since you are here. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. It really does help me get the videos out there, and it really does help the channel grow. And we are growing here, and it's because of you, and it's because of you sharing. It's because of you commenting, liking, all that stuff. It really does help YouTube, help others find me. So please do that. Thank you. And if you want to follow me on social media, you can do that at those tags right there. Every time I do that, I get a couple follows. So that is where you can find me. So make sure to do that as well. And we're going to get right back into the comments. Let's see. Richard Davis, with all the past talk about pitch count, they wouldn't say Strider was just tired. I don't think that would be the case. I mean, that could happen, but it very well may be, but I don't think they're fearful to say that he's tired. I think they would just say that he's tired. That being said, if he is, then, we'll see him game 1 of the postseason, but I think ultimately what matters here is he's out for the rest of the season, and it's a terrible time to be out. It's the worst time to be out for Strider because this is the biggest series of the year regular season-wise. The Braves may not win the division. I think that is something that, we need to go ahead and come to grips with. That may not happen. But what we can say is that the Braves are headed to the postseason, which right now, guys, the Phillies just got swept by the Cubs and are now tied with the Brewers for the last wild card spot. It could be worse. It could be much worse. So the Mets may win the division. That may happen. Credit to them. They've had a great year. The Braves have had a pretty good year too. And if the Braves can steal one in this series and walk away with the division, that would be major for the postseason. It really would. And it would also give Strider more time to rest. It would give everybody time to rest, but namely Strider, who, whether he's tired or whether it's an oblique, whatever the case may be, it gives him more time. And that is something we need to consider. But right now, I think ultimately, what the injury actually isn't necessarily a priority. Joe Reese says, I think it's ironic that they say Mike Soroka had arm inflammation and shut him down. Then Snicker said he would have started him in Odorizzi's spot. Odorizzi is horrible. Yeah, look, Soroka has been an experiment this year. He has been quite the experiment. It's an interesting case because, look, we all want Soroka to come in and be successful. even if you're not a Braves fan, this guy is easy to root for. He's been out for 2 years now, and he was an ace when he left. So we're all rooting for this guy, rightfully so. He's soft-spoken, he's nice, you know. He never has an excuse. I mean, he's an easy guy to root for. That being said, it's been tough with Soroka. You know, we can talk about it all day, but, you know, at the end of the day, guys, he's not coming back this year. We'll hopefully see him next year, and he'll be ready to go. But at the end of the day, guys, what we have is what we have. And right now, that is Jake Odorizzi. And, you know, I still think Bryce Elder, Kyle Muller are both viable options. But right now, what does that really mean? We don't know. At the end of the day, we're at a point now where we have to watch it play out. That is where we are. We have to watch it play out. And that's not always easy to do, I'm aware. But this is what we watch the game for, is to watch these games like this play out. You know, the regular season is fun. It's fun to watch, fun comebacks, you know, whatever the case may be. But the postseason is different. It just is. We saw it last year, you know, magical moments, big moments. You know, Jorge Soler became a hero for Atlanta for the end of time. You know, we see those moments, and we're here now. And this is going to be very exciting. So as much as we would like the team to be completely healthy, this is something we're going to battle every year. Somebody's not going to be healthy. This year, it's Ozzie Albies, Mike Soroka, Spencer Strider now, Adam Duvall, and last year it was a lot of the same. It was Ronald Acuna. It was Adam Duvall in the World Series. Whatever the case may be, Charlie Morton in the World Series. It's a long road, and we're going to have injuries. I wish Mike Soroka was ready to go and was pitching game 2, but right now we're going to have to battle through. Richard Davis says, Braves tend to play better teams better than weaker teams. Well, I think it's easier to show up. You know, you ever heard like people talk about mainly like college football teams? You know, let's say like Georgia's going in to face Oregon, right? As opposed to going in and facing Alabama. Even if the score doesn't show it, Georgia's probably going to play better against Alabama just because it's easier to get motivated for that game. And I think similar, you know, the Braves have a similar way of going about it. And it's just easier to do. You feel the how do I put this? You feel the energy, you feel, you know, the pressure, that adds up, and it really makes you want to do better. And I think that's the case. But, you know, I do agree with you there. Let's see. I'm going to go to... Oh, we got a super chat. It's from Jonathan Collins. MVP for National League. Oh, that's tough. That's actually really tough. I really have to look at the race now. I know it's kind of between a few guys. Goldschmidt was one at one point. I know Manny Machado was doing really well. Bryce Harper was doing pretty well. You know, or no, actually no. Bryce Harper was not doing pretty well. He got injured this year. Let's look at the odds tracker. I think that's probably the best thing we can do. It's been kind of up in the air. You know, I don't get too, how do I put this? I don't get too, you know, headstrong with like looking at the MVP conversation. Right now, it looks like the favorite is still Paul Goldschmidt, and behind him, Nolan Arenado, Freddie Freeman, and Manny Machado. So I would probably lean towards Paul Goldschmidt. I think he's been able to play like he's playing now all year long. I think, you know, Freddie Freeman's had a good year, sure. But Paul Goldschmidt's had a year that started well and is finishing well. And the Cardinals have been an exciting story, you know, with Pujols and with Yachty and Wainwright and Goldschmidt. I mean, it's been very fun to watch. And I think he's quietly been very good, and he's finally starting getting the credit that he deserves. Goldschmidt's one of those guys that quietly does his job, and the stats have always shown it. He's always been a 280 and above hitter, 30 homers or more. He's always been that guy, but this year he's finally getting that credit, and I'm happy to see it. So for me, it'd be Paul Goldschmidt. But thanks for that, Jonathan. Let's see. Bill Gates says, I was at the Wash bobblehead game, and it was great going to the Sunday night game. Hope it's meaningful. If so, the atmosphere is going to be lit. Yeah, I think all these games are going to be lit. I mean, look, they're all sold out. You know, the energy can quickly be sucked out with one homer, but look, guys, I'll tell you, there is no better thing than watching a postseason environment. There's nothing better. I was lucky enough to go to a lot of the games last year towards the end of the regular season and during the postseason, and I will tell you, there is nothing better. When Eddie Rosario hit that 3-run homer in Game 6 last year, there is nothing better than that. And, I play that video all the time. We're going to play it again. I absolutely love that environment. Look at everybody standing up. Everybody knows what's at stake. Everybody knows how important this at-bat is. When Matzik struck out the 3 batters in a row, everybody in the stadium knew how big of a deal that was. I guarantee you, when Jorge Soler hit that ball in Houston, you just felt the room drop. You just felt, there was a gasp. I guarantee you. And it's because everybody there cares about it. Everybody there is invested. And there is nothing better than the postseason environment. This weekend, the Braves and the Mets, it's going to be a postseason environment. After that, every game in Atlanta is a postseason environment. Make no mistake. So that is how I feel about it. But I think it's going to be very exciting. I'm going to try to get to one of those games. Haven't really made any plan to do so with the weather being so questionable. Never really did it. I will try to be at one of those games. I'll post on the community page if I'm there. Make sure to stop and say hello. To do that, all you need to do is subscribe so that you're aware, of the community page. The community page is also where I post updates for if we're doing something that night. I posted that we're doing this. I posted, that if we have technical difficulties, anything like that, I go to the community page and I kind of keep you updated on what we're doing. So make sure to subscribe and, of course, follow the community page so you can keep up. But, it's been very, very exciting here lately, and I think this weekend's going to be great attendance-wise for the Braves. I think it's going to be very profitable for the Braves and their front office, but I think it's going to be very exciting from a fan's perspective as well. Joe Reese says, will this hurricane coming into South Carolina affect the game tomorrow? Will the rain get over to Atlanta and cause a rain out? That was a concern a couple of days ago because we didn't really know where the storm was going to be. Full disclosure, I work for a local news station. I've been kind of keeping up with the hurricane for different reasons, frankly, more important reasons, but I don't believe so. I think we're pretty much going to escape that. We could see rain. I don't think it's going to be a rain out. The Mets actually wanted to move the series up a day, and the Braves declined it because I think I think the Braves basically felt like it would be an advantage towards the Mets, and MLB ended up denying it anyway. But at the end of the day, it is a concern. It could happen, but I wouldn't stress out about it. I don't think it's going to cause a rain out. You may see a rain delay, but I don't think there's going to be anything of substance to cause a rain out. I'm no meteorologist, though, so ask your local meteorologist. But that's what I would say as of right now. Captain Spartan says, who's going to be starting at second base in the playoffs, Arcia or Grissom? You're forgetting about Ozzie Albies there. We don't know whether or not Ozzie is going to be healthy or not. So just keep that in mind. That could very well be the case. But I don't think he will be for the Wildcard series. It's been pretty quiet, for that conversation. They did say he'd be back for the postseason. So that could happen. If so, we'll find at bats for Grissom. But if I'm prioritizing between Arcia and Grissom, I'm going with Vaughn. Because Vaughn has been such a consistent hitter. He's been good ever since we brought him up. He's had little struggles, but nothing of substance. So, sorry about that. Nothing of substance. So, I think Vaughn would be the guy that I would lean to, but it's not, a definite. I think, you may see them switch in and out. You may see, Arcia get a game, Vaughn get a game, whatever the case may be. They will figure that out. But I think that maybe you see Arcia come in for late inning defense. Maybe that'd be the case. But Vaughn at the plate is so much more complete and has more upside that I think you have to have him in the lineup in some degree. If Ozzie's back, then maybe you put Vaughn, off the bench, whatever the case may be. I proposed the idea of putting Vaughn in left field. I saw them in pregame working with that. I still think they're working with that for next year, possibly if Dansby were to come back. So there's a lot there that, it's up to the Braves. I can sit here and tell you what I think. I'm telling you what I think right now. But at the end of the day, guys, it's what Snit, Wash, Eric Young, and the front office decide to do. So I'm telling you from an outsider point of view. But if Ozzie Albies is back, I think he probably starts at second base. And Vaughn, there's the option of DH, there's the option of left field. But right now, I don't want to take Robbie Grossman out of the lineup. I don't want to take Eddie Rosario out of the lineup. So they'll be fighting for it. And, you know, if it comes down between Ozzie and Grissom, then it'll probably be Ozzie. If it comes down to Grissom and Arcia, I think you've got to lean Grissom. But that's just, you know, what I think again. So, you know, it could go either way. Chris Kaysen says, let me see, sorry about that. Tyler, do you see low-scoring, intense relief pitching games or mid to high-scoring games in the 3-game Mets series? I think it could go either way. I'm not exactly sure. Give me just a second. I think it usually comes down to the starters. In Game 1, I'd probably expect low-scoring, intense relief pitching games, like you just said. You know, and that's mainly because just in general you have Fried and you have DeGrom on the mound, according to the chat. So it will be DeGrom and Fried. So that's that. In Game 2, I would expect the same thing because it will be Scherzer and Kyle Wright. In Game 3, you know, that would be your best chance for like a mid to high scoring game. I don't think it'll be a high scoring game, but you have Charlie Morton on the mound for the Braves with a 4.29 ERA and Chris Bassett on the mound with a 3.27 ERA. That would probably be your best chance for something like a mid to high scoring game. I don't think any of them will be. I think it's going to be intense, like you mentioned, and I don't think anybody's going to get out to a major lead. Now, I say that the Braves could pop off and hit 3 homers in the first inning. Who the heck knows? But the Mets could do the same thing. So it's baseball, guys. It's hard to predict. But I would tell you that based on paper and based on who's pitching, I'm going with the low scoring. I think that's the obvious answer there. Bill Gates says Ozuna needs to be DH for the rest of the season. Grossman's been great, but Ozuna has the highest level of anyone for that DH spot. I get what you're saying. I do. But I don't think you want to overlook Grossman completely. You definitely don't want Ozuna in the field. So if it comes down between, you know, Ozuna or Grossman in left field, I want Grossman in left field. You know, but for me, I think right now it's hard. It's a good problem to have, but it is still a problem that you got to figure out. For me, I look at Grossman, I look at Rosario, I look at Ozuna, and I'm going with the hot bat. Ozuna's been hitting fairly well. Grossman's been rather quiet lately. Rosario's hitting well. And I think you have to play it like that, right? If somebody has a bad day, maybe don't play them Game 2, right? I think that's kind of what they're going to have to do. And, you know, maybe it's an equal share, maybe it's not. Who really knows? We'll have to wait and see. Whatever they decide to do will probably be more educated than what we know. But we will see. It's probably going to come down to matchups. It's going to come down to who hits what pitcher better and that kind of thing. But, you know, we will see. Chris Kaysen says, Elder has the sauce. I would be totally surprised if we don't see him on the 26th man. I would agree. I think Grossman should be on, I think Elder should be on that 26-man roster. I mentioned that earlier. I think that is the obvious as of right now. But we will see. You know, it's gonna have to show itself. You know, they'll drop that roster at some point, but hopefully it's for the NLDS and not the wild card. Blake says, if Arcia stays hot, you got to decide if you want to play him. And man, what a great problem to have with this offense. Yeah, it's a great problem to have. Again, great problem to have. Arcia's been hot, but I would almost rather save Arcia for a big moment. And I know you're going to be like, no, absolutely not. But I almost would. You know, like I get that, you know, the bench bats are all but extinct now. They don't happen a lot. But there may come a time where, you know, maybe Grissom's 0 for 3, not seeing the ball well against Scherzer and the Mets, right? Stick him in there, you know, with runners on. Stick him in a big situation, right? If Grossman's hitting and, you know, you want to bring up a righty instead of a lefty in a big-time situation, save Arcia for that. And, you know, that's just an example. But it could happen. And these are the moments where guys like that, you know, become legends, you know, for the Braves and for Major League Baseball teams. It's those moments. I would almost rather do that. And I think Arcia has a lot more experience off the bench from this year and years prior. So, you know, he's had like a ton of pinch hit homers this year. Don't take that weapon away. That is a weapon. You remember how impactful Pablo Sandoval was off the bench a couple years ago, last year, during the regular season. Imagine Orlando Arcia, who's had pinch hit homers. He's had regular homers as well, but he's had a lot of pinch hit homers. Imagine that weapon coming off the bench and doing something. And it doesn't have to be a homer. It could be a double. It could be a single. But with runners on, and you want to keep that advantage. Who would you rather bring in off the bench? Orlando, A-Ray, or Guillermo? I would probably go Arcia if it's me. Vision says, I will be at Truist for Saturday's game. Can't wait. Would love to see Bryce Elder postseason on the postseason roster, by the way. That shutout has to be one of my favorite games this season. It was great. It was great. I don't care who it's against. Anytime you do that, it's great. And have fun at the game Saturday there, Vision. I appreciate you tuning in, as always. Let's see. General says, are you from Atlanta? I am not. I am not streaming from Atlanta. I am not from Atlanta. I was not born in Atlanta. I live about 2 hours south, really about an hour and a half south, in Columbus. And look, guys, this is a short drive. I love the Braves. I grew up watching the Braves. I might as well live there. It doesn't really much make a difference. I'm there all the time, and I love everything about the city of Atlanta, and I love everything about the Atlanta Braves. But no, I am not from there. I am not employed with the Braves. I am none of that. I completely self-funded, all that stuff. Those questions happen a lot, so you're not alone. General Quacks, if you will please subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And I know you're a new guy watching, so I really do appreciate it. Chris Kaysen brings up a really good point. Where are all the likes, Braves country? Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. We put a lot of work in to make these streams, and I really do appreciate all you guys tuning in. Let's see. John Moore. What's up, JT? All right, Captain Spartan says, haven't been paying attention to the rest of the league. Can Kyle Wright win the Cy Young, or does someone have it on lockdown? I don't think he's got that on lockdown, if I'm not mistaken. I don't believe so. Kyle has had a great year. Really and truly he has. But I don't think he's got the Cy Young capability. I don't think his stats are there. Just the fact that he's a 20-game winner from last year is a big deal. But I think there's a lot of guys ahead of him. And look, again, Kyle has had a absolutely great year so far. And look, just the fact that, again, he's winning, it very well could happen. I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the predictor. He's number 2 on that list. He's behind Julio Urias for the Dodgers. Urias has fewer innings, but he also has an ERA of 2.17, and he's got 5 less innings. Kyle Wright has a 3.18 ERA. So I'm looking at that, and Kyle has more wins. He's got about 10 more strikeouts, but I think ultimately they're probably going to give that to Urias. Also, Tony Gonsolin is in the conversation as well. He's got a lower ERA. The Cy Young predictor that I'm looking at right now has Kyle Wright at number 2. But if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm probably going Gonsolin or Urias over Kyle Wright. And look, I would love Kyle Wright to win the Cy Young. Make no mistake. We are big Kyle Wright fans here at On Deck, but it's just not a guarantee. And Urias, again, a better ERA, 5 less innings, less strikeouts and less wins. It could go either way, but right now I think you'd have to give it to either Urias or Gonsolin. And guys, look, just the fact that Kyle Wright is in this conversation is a major step forward. Again, we're talking about a guy who was sent to AAA last year and came out in the World Series and didn't know what we were going to get. We got an excellent performance then, and then now he's, number 2 in our rotation. So I think that's just, it speaks volumes to how, giving somebody a chance, giving somebody that extra opportunity can go a long way. And I think it's a huge deal for the Braves and a huge deal for Kyle Wright as well, going forward in his career, because there's more to go for Kyle Wright. This is not his only opportunity to win a Cy Young. This does not just happen year to year. This is something that I think is going to be consistent. Great question there, Captain Spartan. On the go with CeeLo says, love the set, man. Go Braves. Let's go Maximus tomorrow night. He is, of course, talking about Maximus Fried. I think Max is going to have a good appearance. He shows up in moments like this. But we'll see. We will see. John Hamm says, the Braves are the defending champions. They know how to win in October, power hitting in the pen. Yeah, absolutely. When times get tough, they seem to perform and pull it out. I think they could very well make a run no matter where they wind up in the postseason. And look, I keep making a big deal. I kind of have to catch myself. I keep making a big deal about the Braves, whether or not they're going to be in a wild card or whether or not they're going to be in the division series. Here's the thing. Anything can happen once you get to the postseason. We've clinched the postseason. We're going to the postseason, everybody. That's a big deal. But it does make it a little easier if you win the division. That being said, it's not impossible to win from the wild card spot. Guys, the Nationals did it as recently as 2019. It can happen. If the Nationals can do it, anybody can do it, right? So the Braves can very well win from the wild card spot. They have a good team. Everybody's hitting better than they have all year, it seems. So I think they can. But you would save your pitching. You'd set your rotation if you can win the division. That being said, I don't think anybody wants to face the Braves in a wild card series. I don't think anybody wants to have to go through the Braves to get to whoever wins the division and is in the NLDS. I don't think anybody wants to do that. So we will see what happens in the regular season, but just know that just because the Braves don't win the division, if they don't, it's not the end of the world. There's still time to go, and there's still a long time to go. But we will see. Jeff Berry says he loves the new setup. You love it. I love it. I get to come in here every day and sit here. So I absolutely love it. It's full of my favorite stuff. So I appreciate that. Richard Davis says the Braves are the wild card. They will play next Friday, Saturday, and maybe Sunday, all in Atlanta. That's the other thing. If the Braves were to win the wild card, they would play those 3 games all in Atlanta. That's an important point. I'm glad you brought that up, Richard. I think that's true. And if they are the wild card, so be it. Get through it, move on, and play your best, and we'll see what happens. But the Mets have had a good year. The difference between the Braves and the Mets, I think the Braves will be back. I don't know about the Mets because you're talking about a team that is heavily reliant on 2 guys that may not be there much longer. I'm talking about DeGrom and Scherzer. There's all the rumors about DeGrom opting out. I was listening to it earlier. There's all those rumors. Whether or not he goes to Atlanta, whether or not he goes somewhere else, whether or not he stays in New York, I don't know. But they're talking about him leaving. That could happen. And, they're heavily reliant on him every 5th day. And they have been. Now, they managed to win this year without him a lot, but that was due to Scherzer. And Scherzer is on year 1 of a 4-year deal where he's, age 38? I mean, guys, at some point you're going to see a decline. I don't care how much of a madman he is. You're going to see a decline. The Braves, on the other hand, they have a lot of exciting players. I don't know if you guys have realized that or not. Whether it be Acuna, whether it be Vaughn Grissom, whether it be Austin Riley, it doesn't matter. They have a long time to go. They have Matt Olson locked in for 10 years. They have Kyle Wright locked in forever. They're going to re-sign Fried. They may re-sign Dansby. The important thing is the Braves are going to be back. This is 1 year out of a long stretch of success for the Braves. And to be honest with you guys, just the fact that they've made the postseason is a big, is successful. I think we're accustomed to them winning the division now, but winning the division is tough. I spoke to Leo Mazzoni earlier this year. I talk about this all the time. I asked him, how hard is it to win the division? Leo Mazzoni credits, his biggest accomplishment in his mind is that the Braves won 14 straight division titles. It's tough. I think this year was a great reminder for the Braves, for us, of just how hard winning the division one time is, much less 14. Keep that in mind. He told me that it would never happen again. It's one of the hardest things to accomplish, 14 straight. Give me another team that's done it. It's not necessarily a definite. You have to do it. And the Braves have to go up against this team with the Mets, who has the biggest payroll in the game, and they have to beat them for the division. And just the fact that they've kept up with them, just the fact that the Braves came back from a 10.5 game lead at one point. Now, they should have never got there, but they got to a 10.5 game lead, and the Mets could not keep it. Could not even keep it above 5. Could not keep it above 3. We are within 1 game of the Mets. That is a big deal. And it's something that's going to get overlooked, but I'm telling you that's a big deal. And again, the Mets, look, they're going to put it all into this year. They should. They got a good team. They could win it all. If they get to the postseason, they very well could win it all if everybody's healthy. That being said, the Braves are going to be back. And I'm not saying that the Braves don't have a chance. They sure do. Darn it, they have a chance to win it all. But just keep in mind, no matter what happens, the Braves will be back. Let's see. Thank you, Blake, for taking out the trash. I appreciate that. Blake says, I need the crowd to act like it's the playoffs and not a usual Friday sellout in June. Bring that energy. Yeah, if you go to the ballpark this week, don't be lazy. Get off your feet, or get on your feet, rather, and be, act like it's a big deal. Absolutely. Mark Narmore says, MLB season is a marathon, not a sprint. This weekend's environment will be like a huge SEC game. Look, I agree with you. I've said all year that the MLB season is a marathon, not a sprint. But right now, guys, I hate to break it to you, it is a sprint to the finish. It is whoever plays the best for the next 6 games. 3 of those are going to be against the Mets head-to-head, but it is going to be a sprint, and the postseason is a sprint. The regular season's a marathon, but this one right here, the rest of the season is a sprint, make no mistake. Chris Kaysen says, hoping that the Braves can jump on the Mets scoring first. Truist Park will be jumping and bumping to the maximum. Yeah, bring that energy, show up, be exciting, and I think it's gonna go great. I really do. Steve Solomon says, you're the man. I love your show. Well, Steve, I appreciate you. I'm glad you watch, and I'm glad you're a subscriber and all that stuff. Thank you very much, and I hope you'll keep on watching and keep on supporting. And I hope the rest of you will as well. By the way, guys, do me a favor. Again, like the video. It really does help get this out there. It really does help the channel grow, and it really does make a difference. So please like the video. If nothing else, like the video. It really, again, does help grow the channel and all that good stuff, and I really would appreciate it. Again, if you want to follow me on social media, you can do that right there. And of course, if you want to watch more content, there's plenty more content for a rainy day. We have interviews, we have takes on whatever the case may be, all of MLB. So go check it out. But again, interviews. I played some of them in the top of the show. Tyler Matzik, Luke Jackson, Phil Necro, Dansby Swanson, Terry Pendleton, The Freeze. Whoever you want to see, I guarantee he might be on there. Matt Olson, Kyle Wright. There's a ton out there, so go check it out. I promise you won't regret it. There's a whole playlist dedicated to it. It's called Get to Know Them, and, of course, interviews as well. So check those out, and you can find them right on the channel homepage, and I think you'll be glad you did. So thank you for watching. We are going to be here for at least a few more minutes, as long as I can, as long as the comment section holds up. We're going to be here. I'm going to answer as many questions as I can, but again, the one-way ticket to get priority is, of course, by super chatting. That is the only way I can really narrow it down. A few of you have done that tonight. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Again, it really does help. And again, if you would just like the video, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Let's see. Yasuki Knight says, who do you think will win tomorrow night? Tomorrow night is DeGrom versus Max Fried. Look, it could go either way. I mean, like, you're asking me who I think could win. I mean, obviously you know who I hope's going to win. But it could really go either way, and that's not an exaggeration. DeGrom could be hot. He could be cold. Fried, could throw a good game, but the Mets squeak out a win. It could go any type of way. We're just going to have to watch it play out. That's the best thing I can tell you there. I wish I could say, well, I think this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and the Braves are going to win. But I can't. At the end of the day, in moments like this, in times like these, it's who shows up and when they do. And that's kind of what we're going to have to wait and see. John G. says, there's a good chance that the Braves will get swept by the Mets' 3 best pitchers. Sure, it could happen. I don't think it will. But, it could. If that were to happen, then, the Braves got to focus on wild card and then beating the Mets in the NLDS. Let's see. Chris Kaysen said, I would rather sacrifice a batter in the lineup, Grissom or Arcia, for the defense upside you get from Albies. Seems like we need to tighten up these ground balls that keep nagging the Braves lately. Yeah, Austin Riley's had a lot of them lately. Every time I watch a game, it's 2 or 3. That needs to tighten up. And with a guy like Wash, I've shown this video already tonight, but I'm going to show it again. The guy like Wash who does this every day. This is very abnormal for the Braves. It's something that, shouldn't be happening, if I'm honest with you. I'm kind of surprised that it is because of how much they credit their defense. But part of that is Albies isn't there. Part of it is, if there's a missile sent to third base, Riley's not necessarily going to pick all of them up. But it would be nice if the Braves could get back to having that, just discipline and consistency on defense. We haven't seen a lot of it lately. And it's just very abnormal for this team who has credited defense so much these past few years. to not have it quite as much this year, truly. But thanks for that comment. That's Chris Kaysen. Jake Hobby says, I don't think it means anything, but people showed Malloy showing Braves jerseys on IG, but I doubt it's for any Atlanta because it was number 24. Not quite sure what you're getting across there, Timmy. I apologize. Comment it down below and try to get a little bit more specific, and I'll try to fix it. Blake says, yeah, the Braves have to score first too many times. They've jumped early by early walks and high pitch counts versus us. Yeah, and look, at the end of the day, with the Braves, the Mets do have lucky hits. Strider mentioned that a while back, got a lot of heat from it all across Major League Baseball. But at the end of the day, the Mets had a lot of lucky hits. Their BABIP is really high, all that stuff. But, if you get runners on and you have a hit, it's going to drive in runs. It's that simple. The Mets were able to do that, got to the Braves earlier in the season. But, yeah, if the Braves can score first, the stats show it, guys. When the Braves score first, it leans it leans to their favor a lot more. So we will see. We will absolutely see what happens. But I would agree with that. Absolutely. A friend of mine just tuned in. Late kick with Josh Pate. Josh Pate is one of the biggest names in college football these days. I don't know if you're still watching, Josh, but I hope you are. He's one of the biggest names in college football. He's also a very good friend of mine. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it, man. Hope you like the set. Josh, I worked with Josh for a few years under the late kick, actually, I guess as like a unpaid intern. But we used to, put together projects and stuff, and he grew his YouTube channel, became one of the biggest names in college football, and trying to do sort of the same thing here by covering the Braves and eventually all of Major League Baseball. But right now we're just having fun talking about baseball. But Josh is one of my mentors and a guy that I really look up to. He's one of the craziest people I've ever met. But again, a mentor and a guy that I really look up to. Good to hear from you, Josh. I'll probably talk to you at some point after this. Corey Carter says the Nationals won in a different playoff format. True. They didn't have to get through 3 games. I agree with you there. But they still won coming out of the Wildcard series. So just keep that in mind. We have a super chat. It is from Jonathan Roberson. Good to hear from you, man. Jonathan Roberson, I'm glad you super chatted. I got to shout him out. Jonathan is a friend of mine in town. He actually gave me the chair that I'm sitting on the other day. So appreciate you, man. He says, do you think the offense has the grit and consistency to go on a deep playoff run? I would say yes. The offense does. I mean, because you have so much carrying over from last year. Whether it be Rosario, whether it be Riley, whether it be whoever it may be, you have so much left over from last year. And I know Freeman's gone, but you have Olsen, who's, just as good normally. You have Acuna back. You're potentially going to get Albies back. I think the offense is there. I'm not even really worried about the offense. I'm more so worried about the pitching, and because I think that's the real concern. With this team specifically right now, I'm more worried about the pitching because, again, we saw what this offense can do last year. They're lightning in a bottle. And if everybody's hitting well, the guy here on the screen right now, Rosario, if he's hitting well, if Ozuna is hitting well, I think things can go very well. But, that they got to show up as well. We keep talking about pitching, and rightfully so. There's a lot of concern there with pitching, whether that be starting rotation, bullpen, doesn't much matter. There's a lot of concern there. But the offense does have to show. And whether or not they do is guys, that's what the games are played for, right? We gotta watch them do it. But they're gonna have their work cut out for them. They're facing, again, 2 of the best pitchers in the game. Whether they have good days or bad days, they are playing 2 of the best pitchers in the game, and Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. So this is a big time series. Make no mistake, this is the biggest series of the year. I keep saying that. It's true. It is the biggest series of the year for the Braves. It is the biggest series of the year for the Mets, at least regular season wise. It is 2 of the biggest series of the year. Every series with the Mets has been a big deal. This one is by far the biggest. But yeah, I think the offense has the grit. I think it has the consistency. And I think that they're playing their best ball right now, at least it seems. So I really think the major concern, if there is one for the Braves going into this series, and whether or not, they go into a postseason run or not, the biggest concern is the starting rotation. Considering you're down Strider, you're pitching Morton, who's been hit or miss. You're down Strider. Odorizzi hasn't been good. It's just, I think that's the major concern. Now you got your shot, you got your bright lights, you got, Max Fried, you got Kyle Wright, and eventually you will get Strider back if you make it to the postseason, or if you make it deep into the postseason, like you mentioned, you will get Strider back. So yes, I think they do have the manpower to do it. Offense isn't my concern. The offense is going to be good or it's going to be bad, but it's the team we have. The starting rotation, there's options there. There's Strider, there's Bryce Elder, who we mentioned earlier. There are viable options. Odorizzi is my biggest concern right now. Morton is number 2. And I really would not be surprised if Elder was to pitch over Odorizzi. Elder was fighting for his postseason spot the other night. That shutout he threw, that was fighting for his postseason spot. Make no mistake about it. Odorizzi, look, we traded Will Smith for Odorizzi. We weren't expecting a major return back. He's been fine. But going into the postseason, fine is not good enough. And, with that out of the way, I look at Elder and I say, well, he's got the tools. We got a good catching core that can control the game, call the game. As long as he executes his pitches, I don't see a problem with throwing him out there. Again, it's not unforeseen. It happened last year with Tucker Davidson. It's not something that is so drastic that it just can't happen. I think it's a viable option. If I'm completely honest with you, I think it is the most viable option. If you're not going the Odorizzi route, Elder to me is the most viable option. I know I've kind of rambled there. I apologize, but thanks for the super chat, Jonathan. I really do appreciate it. But yes, I think the offense absolutely does have the consistency, all that stuff. I really do. And the Braves offense is also built for the postseason. You're talking about an offense that's heavy in strikeouts, but also heavy in homers and heavy in, how do I put this? They put bat on ball and they have power. That fits the postseason. And all through the lineup, you have guys that have speed. You have guys that have, a good batting average. But you also have guys with power. Michael Harris has been a godsend for the Braves this year. He has been absolutely great. Vaughn Grissom, same token. They have both been very consistent. They've been 2 of the most consistent hitters in the lineup in getting on base. And those 2 guys get on base, they're fast enough to get around them. It's just that simple. And with guys like Olsen and Riley who have that natural power, it just is fluid. And it's really a difficult lineup for another team to look at and go through. Because Paul Bird mentioned this the other night. He mentioned, there's guys you circle in the lineup when you're getting ready for a game as a pitcher. He said, there's nobody that I'm not circling on the Braves. There's nobody that's not circled on the Braves lineup. There's no one. And it is a difficult lineup to get through. And look, Ozuna's had his struggles this year. We're all aware of it. But even Ozuna, if he gets hold of one, it's gone. And that's true for everybody. Rosario can hit one out as fast as he is. Michael Harris can hit him out. Vaughn Grissom can hit him out. Dansby Swanson can hit him out. There's power all through the lineup. And that's what I think makes the Braves lineup so dangerous. So yes, offense, not even a concern. So thanks for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. Guys, remember, if you want to get priority, if you want your question answered right now, it brings you to the top of the line. Make sure to super chat. I get to those first. Other than that, we're going to go through the comments. As long as you guys keep it up, we're going to be here. So I really do appreciate you tuning in. And it's going to be exciting. It's going to be an exciting weekend. We're going to be here. We may do something tomorrow night. Possibly. I don't really know quite what we're going to do just yet. We may do some kind of live stream. I don't know. We'll put it on the community page. So again, that's just another reason to go like and subscribe where I can update you there. We may do something. I'm not sure just yet on whether or not I'm going to be here to be able to do it. But if we do, we'll put it on the community page hours in advance. You'll get a notification if you hit the bell for notifications and subscribe right now. And again, do me a favor, like the video. It really does help. And I do appreciate you guys tuning in. Let's see. Joe Reese says, who do you think will be the Soler in this Mets series and hit big home runs against DeGrom and Scherzer? I think it'll be Matt Olson. Well, considering he's a lefty, he certainly has an advantage. I think any lefty has the advantage. I mean, Rosario could be that guy too. But look, Rosario, and I'm with you on Olson, by the way. We'll get back to him in just a second. Rosario, he's had his struggles this year, with eyesight problems and all that. But look, guys, he had an injury last year too and had one of the best postseason performances ever. Ever. Against the Dodgers last year and carried into the World Series. Soler was great. We all know the homer he hit. We all know how impactful he was in the lineup. But Rosario was a guy that if he's clicking, he's on. And right now it seems to be that he's on. Ozuna could be that guy. He's seen Scherzer a lot. He has seen, DeGrom a lot. Whatever the case may be, any of these guys can be that. That's what's so exciting about this lineup. It's kind of what I was just saying. Anybody can be the guy. And that's, again, if they're going to be the guy, then great. But any of them can be. I can sit here and tell you that I think Olsen has the advantage. Olsen might go 0 for 5 and Rosario could have 3 homers. We don't know. But that's what's so exciting about it, is we don't know how it's going to go. If we knew that the Braves were going to win 10-0, how exciting would that be? It's going to be an exciting feel. If you had to put, if I just had to give you one, I think Olsen's a great choice. Olsen has been a great player for the Braves. I think with all of what he had to deal with coming into the year, with Freddie Freeman leaving and him coming in right behind, I think he's had a great year. I think he's going to have a great career with the Braves. I think it's been, just a great time for Olsen. That being said, if he could have a postseason moment, even better. If he can have, a big-time moment against the Mets to take the division and head into the postseason with all that momentum, great. But if anybody has that moment, it gives the Braves so much momentum. It really does head it into the postseason. And that's what's important. Momentum is a really big deal in any sport, but it's a really big deal in baseball. You have the momentum, you have everything. The Braves had the momentum last year, and hopefully they can get it again this year. Thanks for the question there, Joe Reese. JL wants to know, can we win the division? Yes, we can win the division. Absolutely. That is still possible. And it's not even like super improbable. The Mets have the advantage. They have a lead right now. They have a 1-game lead. It can happen. If you win 2 against the Mets and lose 1, you're now tied, headed into the final series. At that point, what you're hoping for is the Braves win 3 and the Mets lose 2 is what you're hoping for at that point. So it'd be better if you swept and you had a lead headed into the final series. You don't want it to come down to a tie, because if it comes down to a tie, whoever's head-to-head record is better between the 2 teams will take the division. That will be the Mets. They have a 9-7 lead. If the Braves were to win 2 and lose 1, that would be a 10-9 lead for the Mets, which is not what we want, obviously, but it is something to consider. You don't want it to be a tie. You want to take the division. A sweep would be phenomenal. It's unlikely, but it would be phenomenal. Whatever happens, at the end of the day, you want to make sure you're geared up for the postseason. So if you lose 2 in a row versus the Mets, you probably got to start considering, okay, how can we rest guys? And, it may be that the last series of the year, you bring up Kyle Muller again, you let Bryce Elder pitch, and maybe Odorizzi pitch, and you gear up for whatever series you kick off with, whoever it may be with you. But guys, again, just the fact that the Braves are in the postseason is great. Okay, that is something that does not need to be overlooked. We expect better out of this team, defending World Series champs. I get all that, but just the fact that we're in the postseason again, it is phenomenal. That being said, once you get to the postseason, you got to win. You got to win 3. You got to win 2 out of 3 in the Wildcard series, whoever that may be against. And beyond that, you have to be ready for the NLDS, and then after that, it's the NLCS. It is a gauntlet through the postseason. It was a gauntlet last year. Do you remember last year? How confident were you entering the postseason? Because I remember me, and I was like, well, I hope we can get past the Brewers. That would be great. And guys, I don't know if you remember, we squeaked by the Brewers. They were a good team last year. They had a lot of good weapons out of the pen. They were a well-pitched team. They also, I believe, had an injury in the pen as well. So it wasn't something that was like, we were super confident against the Brewers. We knew what was going to happen. We didn't. I remember in 2020, we beat the Reds to move on to the NLCS eventually. And, that wasn't like super confident either. So the postseason, you're never really going to feel like, oh, we got this in the bag. Like this is ours. You're not going to feel that way. Every single series is going to be challenging. Every single one. And that's what makes it the postseason. So I think ultimately you just have to remember that the Braves have a shot. They have a chance, whether it's in the wild card, whether it's in the NLDS. We prefer it to be in the NLDS to start off, but if not, they got to win. And, if they're up to the challenge, then go for it. That's the way we got to win. That's the way we got to think. But JL, to answer your question, yes, it is still possible. Is it improbable? Maybe. I think if you lose the first game, it becomes improbable. If you win the first game, you still got a good shot. But right now, it's a little bit we don't know. This is we're getting down to the wire. We're going to find out here this weekend whether or not the Braves can win the division or not. Blake Newsom says, I like when Braves fans remind Braves fans anything is possible in a DeGrom sweepstake, being that Freddie left. How do I put this? DeGrom to me is unlikely. It could happen, but I don't see the Braves making a mega deal with DeGrom. And I'm going to tell you why. I don't think he fits the philosophy. I know that it kind of switched this year with Strider, so I don't want to be a hypocrite when I say this. But DeGrom pitched half of last year. He was excellent during that half, but he didn't have anything else. That's why he pitched differently the other day in Oakland. He doesn't want to throw his arm out. If he's going to opt out this year and go to another team, then, he's got to start pitching differently. He's got to start pitching to last and not pitching to, be great for, half the season. Leo Mazzoni, he always says, he always asks everybody in the room, Tyler, who's your favorite pitcher? Who's the best pitcher in the game right now? Jacob deGrom, right? Pretty simple. This is a couple years ago. Jacob deGrom, it's pretty simple. That being said, he'll also go, okay, what did deGrom lead in last year? You probably say, what did he lead in the first half last year? Strikeouts, wins, whatever the case may be. You know what he led in the second half? Missed starts. Just keep that in mind. I don't know that deGrom fits the philosophy. Is he a great pickup for any team? Absolutely. Does he want to compete? Yes. Could he adapt? Yes. Would I like to have him? Absolutely. But that being said, it's still something that, it's still something that I don't know that the Braves are going to want to do. I will say that if the Braves somehow lose the division, or let's just say they lose the division, if that happens, I think the Braves do make a major push for something in the offseason, some kind of deal. Probably pitching. I don't know that it'll be DeGrom. I just don't. Because, look, our homegrown talent's great, but we're here to compete now offensively, and if Morton's not up for it anymore, if Kenley's not up for it anymore, whatever the case may be, Odorizzi's not the answer. So whatever the case may be, the Braves may go get something. I don't know what, but I think they may go get something, and we'll have to wait and see. But until the offseason, that's not of our concern. Right now, we got to worry about beating DeGrom, not even signing DeGrom. So we will see. Great question there, by the way. Corey Carter says, let's see. William Fogum has a super chat, says Rodon would be better than DeGrom in my opinion. I don't completely hate that, William. To tell you the truth, I really don't. That being said, I don't even know, is he a free agent next year? I really have to look at that. And I haven't really done the research on it, but I do think because of how talented the Braves are and because they know they can win in the postseason, if they lose the division, I think they might go get something to battle back of what the Mets are doing because they have the finances. They have, the ability to do it. I think they will. They just got to make sure they make the right decision. I don't hate the Rodon idea. I think that's actually a pretty good idea. I just don't know that it's necessarily what's going to happen. But if DeGrom was to opt out, which it seems to be going that way right now, that could happen. It seems to be leaning that way. Then, I think ultimately we'll have to wait and see. But I ultimately, it's tough. If it happens, if Rodon happens, I'm excited. If DeGrom happens, I'm excited. If Zach Gallen happens, I'm excited. Whoever's a free agent that's a big deal, I think the Braves may be in those sweepstakes, absolutely. JL says, will you stream tomorrow's game? Okay, I can't stream the actual game. So I can't show you the game. I'm not going to do that. I'll get in trouble, and I don't feel like getting sued. That being said, what I can do is stream during the game and basically comment over it, commentate over it, like I did for the Home Run Derby. That was a big hit. I very well may do that at some point this weekend. I don't know that it'll be tomorrow. I'm contemplating doing that. It kind of depends on my time. I don't know. But we will see. I probably will stream at some point this weekend, whether it be after the game, during the game, whatever the case may be. But I will be watching the game. I will be, up to date with it. And I very well may stream during it. We will see. Again, that will be on the community page. So I would encourage you, if you'd like to join, make sure to like this video, subscribe, all that stuff. to make sure that you're updated, and of course check out the community page. We post there regularly. We posted we're going to be live tonight. We posted that, whatever the case may be. We post when a new video's up. We post all that stuff. So anything you need to know regarding this channel is on the community page. So make sure you follow that as well. Set notifications to be on so that you know right when we go live, all that stuff. And you of course, know right when we drop a new video. Corey Carter says, do you think Snit mismanaged the pen last night? Snit has turned me into a fan of his, but I didn't want to see Stevens in an important inning. Well, it's easy to say that, right? Like, it's easy. Hindsight brings a lot of benefits, but Snit doesn't have that. Jackson Stevens pitched 2 really good innings the other day, 2 in important scenarios. So I think I get what you're saying, but, guys, it's tough, So if it had worked out, he would have been a genius, right? That's kind of the battle we're having. Is it Snit's fault? Is it the pen's fault? Who knows? I mean, obviously the game was lost. I mean, it would have been a great win if we had gotten it. But look, I mean, who could foresee that Kenley would struggle so much? Who could foresee that Minter would have his early season struggles? Snit's gotten a lot of those questions this year. And I think there's a little bit of truth to it. I think if Snit has any challenge, it would be the bullpen, that he can't seem to quite master. But look, the way he managed the bullpen last year in the postseason was excellent. And I think he can do it. I don't, I'm not comfortable getting up here telling you that I think Snit's management of the pen is terrible, because it's not. It's management of the pen. It's pretty standard, and it's not only his decision. You have multiple guys that you go through, you get advice from. Ultimately, it is Snit's decision, I guess, but there's more to be considered there. And yeah, the pen has been hot and cold this year. I think we're all aware of that. And Snit's been a little, hit or miss with the pen as well. But it's not necessarily. I wouldn't necessarily make it fall on Snit. And that's just my opinion, but is there somebody else I would have rather seen? Maybe. But then again, they're privy to information we don't have, whether that be someone's status, whether their arm's tired, whether they're, they do really well against lefties, whatever the case may be, they have all that information. They make the most educated decision, typically, more than we do. And I try to remember that before I go calling for any, what are you doing? That's not how I handle it. That's not how I go about business. But at the end of the day, I think ultimately, is it mismanagement? Is it just bad execution on Jackson Stevens? Who knows? Hopefully it doesn't show its ugly face in the postseason. Let's see. Joey Fox says, what is your opinion on whether we will re-sign Dansby or not? All right, I've answered this question a lot. I really don't know, and to be honest with you, I wish I did, obviously. I don't know. I think I would lean towards yes, and I've answered this question so many times. I know somebody's watching going, really, we're talking about this again? But I'll answer it for you. Basically, I would tell you that I think after Freddie Freeman, I'm not confident in telling you that I'm confident in someone coming back, if that makes any sense. I'm just not confident in going, yeah, Dansby's definitely going to be back. But I think Dansby's going to be back. Okay, that's kind of what I can say. I think he is, but I'm just not confident going, yes, absolutely, Dansby's going to be back. Because I said that once, and I was wrong. So I just don't want to tell you wrong information. So take it with a grain of salt. I think he's going to come back. He lives here. He may explore the market. I don't know exactly what's going to happen there, but hopefully he comes back. Hopefully, he's able to come back. But at the end of the day, guys, it's a business. If he wants his money, fine. We have Vaughn Grissom in the waiting. We have options. So I think the Vaughn Grissom idea, also gives the Braves a little leverage in those conversations. But, we'll see. At the end of the day, we'll see. If it gets to a point, I'll let you know when, okay, I think we need to move on from Dansby. I'll let you know. But right now I don't. Lauren Rice says, is that Peterson's Player Tribune on your wall? If so, where can I get one of those? She is talking about this thing right here. Yes, so that's custom made. That right there is custom made. I got that made at a sign company here in town. Made the design myself, all that stuff. It's the entire letter he wrote, all the way down to "We Are Those" at the bottom. He actually signed it right there. Got that done a few months ago. Very excited to put that one on the wall, but that one's been sitting in the corner somewhere for a while. So very excited to put that one up. Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff. I'm sure, being that I'm on a new set, you guys are looking at it left and right, wondering what all this is. Maybe one day I'll go through it all and kind of show you what it is. But, for right now, I'll just keep you guessing. But yeah, that is Jock Peterson. Good job picking that out. That is the letter, and that is signed by him as well. So thank you for that, Lauren Rice. I appreciate it. Miguel Freaka says, hey, Tyler, the Braves have 0 bunts this season. Don't you think that is the main reason that they lose too many extra inning games? So they don't have 0 bunts. Rosario had a bunt hit the other day. They have 0 sacrifice bunts. That is because pitchers are no longer hitting. That is all that is. It's never happened in the history of baseball. I get all that. I don't know that it's drastically affecting extra inning games like that. I don't particularly love the extra inning rules. I think they're garbage, but that's for another day. They don't have 0 bunts. They have 0 sacrifice bunts. Could they implement it? Sure. But with the Braves offense being the way it is, I don't know that it's in their best interest. I don't know if they're built like that. I don't know if they're built to do that. I remember saying I was at a game earlier this year, and we were watching, and I'm looking at the shift, right? And everybody's on the right side. Rosario's at the plate. And I'm like, I look at the guy next to me, and I'm like, hey, why doesn't he just bunt? He's got the speed. Just bunt. All of a sudden, Rosario hits a 2-run homer, and I'm sitting there looking stupid because I was like, just bunt, And so that it's who really knows, right? I thought that way before, but think about this. How many games have you watched where you're like, what they really need to do right now? They need to bunt. They need to bunt. And sure, extra inning games is a good example because you have that runner on second. But, I think the Braves would rather take their chances swinging. And, that is what it is. But we'll see. Let's see. Chris Kaysen says Jock Custom Setup probably is being held by 13 fasteners, judging by how much it is jumping off the wall. Nope. It's just held up by Velcro. That's it. That's all it's holding it up. But yeah, we put a lot of work into the set. I'm glad you guys are fans of it. Let's see. Will the Braves sweep the Mets? We're going to have to wait and see. David Rolex says, let's go Mets. Mr. Rolex, if you could get me a Rolex, I'd appreciate it. Richard Davis says, Acuna is looking better. He will be this year's MVP after missing last year. We all hate that Acuna missed last season's postseason. That was terrible. And his injury was terrible. Maybe he'll make a big impact this year. But for right now, we got to get to it, Eric Paz says Mets are taking 3 out of 3 and popping bottles on Sunday. I don't think so, but we'll see. I'm trying to move a little quicker. Let me see. Lauren Rice says Odorizzi wouldn't even be allowed to bring the game balls to the dugout if I was Snit. Yeah, I get it, guys. I really do. At the end of the day, guys, with all the pitching struggles and as good as the front office is, the trade deadline last year was so well responded to. I mean, everybody loves what happened last year at the trade deadline. I mean, it was one of the greatest trade deadlines ever. That being said, it can't be expected to happen every year. Odorizzi was the guy we got at the deadline. It hasn't turned into being what we hoped he would be, exactly. Hasn't been exactly the best starting pitcher, that he could be. But, what did we give up for him? No offense to Will Smith. We're fans of him here, but he was not very consistent this year. And, at the end of the day, you get what you pay for. And Odorizzi just has not quite been that guy for us. And I wish he had been, but it just hasn't quite added up. Let's see. You guys have been very active tonight. Let me see. A lot of talk about the Jock Tribune poster. Yeah, it's a good one. That was a thought I had, and I absolutely love it. Let me see. Corey Carter says, I'm not running the flag up the pole and resting anyone until we are eliminated. Rest can be overrated. I agree with that. I completely agree with that. I do think rest is important. You'd like to win the division so that you can rest the guys, especially the guys that aren't on the team right now due to injury. That would be my main priority, is focusing on those guys. But other than that, yeah, I'm good with starting the postseason, sooner rather than later. Romeo says, I just got in. Is Strider going to be ready? Not for this series. We're talking about the Braves and Mets series. He is not going to be ready for this series, but he will be ready for the postseason if everything is to go as planned, he should be ready for the postseason. That is as much as we know right now. Let's see. Let me see. Lot of you guys are being active tonight. Raphael Watson says, I watch your video all the time. Good job, man. Do you think I should put Atlanta Braves, American League? Whoa. I watch your video all the time. Good job, man. Do you think I should put the Atlanta Braves in American League and we can see the next... Not quite sure what you're asking me there. If you could reword that for me, I'd appreciate it. Just not picking up on you. Drew Phillips says, with AAA season over, do you see any call-ups for this series? Kyle Muller would be your biggest chance there. I don't see anybody position-wise in the minors right now that I'm like, yeah, that's the guy. It would definitely be pitching. And to be honest with you, I think it's definitely either this guy, Kyle Muller, or, Bryce Elder still on the major league level, but he's essentially a AAA call-up, but he just already got called up. Bracho got called up today. He's a bullpen piece. We haven't used him a ton this year. That is a call-up, but whoever they call up, I guarantee you is going to be pitching. You're not going to see anybody come up and take a position spot. You're not going to see anybody come up and take a bench spot. I just don't think it's going to happen. We're pretty much set in that regard. For the most part, we're battling over who's going to take the spot at the major league level, much less if a minor leaguer is going to come in and add to the conversation. So I definitely think it would be pitching, and I think your best options would be, again, the guy in the video right now, Kyle Muller, and the guy that we've been talking about all night, Bryce Elder, after his shutout the other day. Again, Bryce is still at the major league level, but you could see him take a game or two during the postseason if the Braves make it deep enough, and if they're not exactly keeping up to date with who they're facing. Cage says, who pitches this series? In Game 1, it will be Jacob deGrom and Max Fried. In Game 2, it will be Max Scherzer and Kyle Wright. And in Game 3, it will be Chris Bassett versus Charlie Morton. So take that for what it is. Let's see. Maybe Maresnik for Heredia. Yeah, I mean that could happen, but I don't think the Braves are going to put Heredia down. This late in the season. I think if that was the plan, they would have already done it. Joe Reese says the Mets had a hard time scoring against Miami pitching. With the Braves pitching being as good as theirs, that should continue. That's what you hope for, right? But the Mets isn't built on their offense. They have the lucky hits, scenario, but they're not really built on their offense. Pete Alonso is the source of most of their power. Daniel Vogelbach is only good some of the time. That is what it is. But at the end of the day, I look at it and I say, well, the Mets offense may not be that good, but the Braves offense may not be that good when facing, Scherzer, deGrom, Bassett. I think that's kind of what we're going to have to look at. So I look at that and I say, well, it really doesn't matter. Anything that has happened up until this point doesn't matter. We went through some of the stats earlier in the night and talked about it. I don't think it much matters anymore. I think you have to realize that at this point, the Braves, Mets, seasons don't matter. This series is its own series. It's its own starting point. You have the Mets' best pitchers versus the Braves' best pitchers that are available. And this was something I was going to touch on. The Mets are sending out their best pitchers. Okay? deGrom, Scherzer, Bassett. Top three, without a doubt. Carrasco's struggling. Taijuan Walker has been garbage all year. The Braves are sending out Max Fried. They're sending out, of course, Kyle Wright, who have both been great. They would have pitched this series no matter what. And they're sending out Charlie Morton, who's good, but he's not their number three. It would be Strider. Without a doubt, Strider would have pitched in this series. So the Mets are sending out their best pitchers. The Braves are sending out the best pitchers they have available. Big difference there. And I think ultimately we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But, it's going to be an exciting series. I can't wait to watch it. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here in about 15 minutes, right at 10 o'clock. You guys have been awesome. We've been going for over an hour and a half, so I can't thank you enough. You've made this stream great. If you want to get anything else in, please do so now. Subscribe to the content, all that good stuff. It really does make a difference. Again, you guys have been absolutely phenomenal, and I again cannot thank you enough. Let's see. Blake Newsom says Heredia can still be the character he is off the roster. I wouldn't be surprised if he's left off the playoff roster for someone else. I wouldn't be either because, I mean, we really don't have that many opportunities for bench bats anyway. They bring him in for late inning defense quite a bit. I don't know if that's going to be priority there. It could happen, but I don't necessarily see it happening that way. Let me see. Drew Phillips says, who is your number 3 starter in the playoffs right now? I think Strider would be a reliever in the wild card round if they don't win the division. I don't. I think the bullpen is going to have to be the bullpen. I think with Strider, you're going to want to keep him in a starter role. And, you know, I've been saying that all year long because it's been the regular season. I mentioned that, well, maybe come postseason he could be a reliever. I mean, he's electric out of the pen, maybe, you know. I think in a World Series type environment, maybe. You know, Game 7, you need the guy to cover 2-3 innings. Strider comes out, shut it down. But in a wild card role, let's say Game 1 you win, Game 2 you're on the verge of winning. You can put this team away. You're up by 2 runs, and you got to cover 7, 8, 9. You got to leave that to the pen. You got to leave that to the guys that have had 7, 8, 9 all year long. But Game 3, you're going to want Strider on that mound because imagine, let's just say Strider somehow doesn't have it in Game 2. Game 3, now he can't pitch Game 3. Who do you go to at that point? So it's just something to consider. I mean, things are going to go the way they're going to go. It's going to happen the way it's going to happen. But personally, for me, if I'm picking, you know, the guys out of the pen, it'd probably be something along the lines of Minter or Matzik or Rysel and then Kenley. You know, that would be the way I would go about it in a must-win situation. But even then, you know, I don't go Strider there. I don't care what the situation is. I don't go Strider there. Not in the wild card round because you got to gear up to go through the NLDS, you got to gear up to go through the NLCS, and you got to gear up to go through the World Series. I understand the concept of, well, if we don't win today, we don't have tomorrow. I get all that, but at the same time, if you don't win, if you lose today and you can't pitch your number 3 tomorrow, you're going to lose the series. You know, or you're putting yourself at a major disadvantage there. That's how I look at it. But, you know, we will see. Let me see. Blake says, any chance we add Chadwick Tromp as a 3rd emergency catcher, maybe even on a taxi squad with both starters playing daily? You could see him on the taxi squad. I think that's actually likely to see him on the taxi squad. I wouldn't be surprised at all, personally. I think, you know, you're not going to see him on the actual roster. I think you will see him on the taxi squad. Darno's going to catch all these games. I firmly believe he's going to catch either all of these games or a lot of these games. He's going to catch far more than the majority. He's going to catch a lot of them. And I say that because he caught every game in the last few games of the year last year. He caught every game throughout the postseason. You know, he's going to catch the majority. He's better behind the dish. Contreras has made major strides. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. He's been a lot better this year. But Darno's far better with the pitching staff. Now, when you're talking about a young pitcher, you're talking about Bryce Elder, you're talking about Kyle Muller, you're talking about anybody like that who's just coming up out of Gwinnett. These guys have played with Contreras for years. You know, they know each other. They're familiar with each other. So that might be a difference, but I really think Darno is going to catch most of these. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Now, that being said, Contreras would be your emergency catcher. Darno would be DH at that point. I think you're going to see that more than likely. Chadwick Tromp would purely be for emergencies, like you mentioned. He would purely be for, taxi squad. And the thing about a taxi squad is you can bring him in at any point, so it really doesn't much matter. Chris Kaysen says the Braves have 2 opportunities to win a series, one versus the Mets. If that fails, then they have the opportunity in the wild card 3-game series. I don't know of another team in that situation. Am I right? I believe you're correct. I haven't really followed another team that closely, but I believe that is correct. They have 2 opportunities to win a series, one versus the Mets. If that fails, then they have the opportunity in the wild card 3-game series. I think at the end of the day, the Braves are in a good situation. They are. You prefer to be leading the division, but you're going to the postseason. You know you're going to have a shot. You have other teams that are just battling to get to the wild card. Please get into the wild card. The Phillies, I mentioned them earlier, just lost a 3-game series to the Cubs, got swept, and are now tied with the Brewers, who are fighting over who's going to actually get a wild card spot, the third spot in the wild card. So you'd much rather be the Braves right now than be the Phillies or the Brewers. So that being said, it's going to be interesting. It really is. This is the first time we've seen this postseason format. This is the first time, in a few years that the Braves haven't outright won the division handedly. So that's going to be different, but it's going to be exciting nonetheless. Gianc, I don't know how to say your name. How do you split the series? Ideally, I'd like the Braves to sweep. That's what you would prefer. But that being said, that's to me, it's unlikely. It's just unlikely. I look at it and I say, well, you hope the Braves can at least win 2. If they win 3, great. If they lose 1, if they lose 2, then all bets are off. Focus on the wild card. And I think that's kind of where we are, just by process of elimination. But we'll see. Corey Carter says Heredia is our pinch run specialist and late inning defensive help. Good point. So he has a pretty clear role in his team. It's not just about the swords. Yeah, he's not just a character. That's a good part of him. He keeps the team loose, and that's great. He was a great part of the World Series run last year. But, Heredia does have his advantages as a player. He is a pinch run guy. They bring him up all the time. He's faster than most of the team. That is like big news. But we will see. Let's see. You guys have been so active tonight. I really do appreciate it. Let's see. Drew Phillips says, my point is I think Snit pitches a healthy Morton over Strider now to start Game 3. In the wild card, I would disagree. In the Mets series, absolutely. I don't know that I pitch Strider. I think you got to go Strider. He's had the rest. It's kind of a day-to-day thing. You'd much rather have Strider there than Morton. And Game 3, it's different, right? Like if Strider doesn't have it in the first 2 innings, Morton's out of the pen at that point. I mean, all bets are off in a Game 3 scenario. I mean, that's essentially a Game 7 season on the line. They're not going to waste time there. They're not going to waste time to not go to the pen. So that being said, I think it's either way. I don't really much matter. But if it's me, I'm going Strider. I mean, the dude's been unhittable all year long. So that'd be where I would go. And to be honest with you, I would trust him a little more right now. Morton hasn't had it. He's been hit or miss, and I just don't know that it's necessarily going to happen. Let's see. Blake says, you also don't want to overwork him in a bad sense like Tyler Matzik last year and have him miss lots of time with lingering issues in 2023. I assume you are talking about Strider. I definitely think that's important. It's been a conversation we've had all year. That there is truth to that. But I think it's also, what do you prioritize? Do you prioritize what you've worked for all year? Or do you prioritize what could possibly happen next year? The Braves have a lot of lingering issues. Strider, could happen. Soroka, we've seen that a lot in recent years. We don't want that to happen, obviously, for Strider. We want someone like that to be around for a long time. So we'll see. Let's see. Jonk says, Mets fan here, but I really would have liked for a Strider versus DeGrom matchup. It would have been amazing. I think there's still time. I definitely think it would have been fun to watch, especially in a postseason type environment. And by the way, even though you're a Mets fan, we'll accept you here. I hope you'll like and subscribe. But yeah, I think ultimately, it would have been great. I don't think DeGrom is quite at his peak right now. I don't think he's pitching to the best of his ability. Again, been an up and down year. He's still Jacob DeGrom, and you as a Mets fan would know that, DeGrom, whether he's at his best or not, is still quite quite the pitcher. He's still a very good pitcher, whether he's completely on or not. But at the end of the day, it's still DeGrom. The Braves are going to have to get through that. It would have been great. They like Blake mentioned, they did match up earlier in the year in New York. But I say but because this is a completely different environment. You're talking about, a regular season series in July as opposed to a postseason style environment come late September, early October. There's a big difference there. And it would have been fun to watch. I would have loved to have been in the ballpark for it. Joe Reese says DeGrom could have a bad game, and Scherzer has had trouble with his oblique all year. A sweep is possible. It's possible. It's not out of the question. It's possible. But I try to be a little bit realistic. I try to be, set realistic expectations. I think when you set realistic expectations, you can be pleasantly surprised. But I don't want to be one of these guys that comes out. You know who I'm talking about. I don't want to be a guy to come out here and go, I think this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, just so I can get views. That's not how I handle this. I try to bring you realistic information, realistic expectations, so that you value this opinion. I want my opinion to be valued. I don't want to be Stephen A. Smith when it comes to baseball. I want to bring you actual legit information and opinion and a level-headed approach. There's been a Mets fan that I enjoy watching on TikTok quite a bit. Frank Fleming. If you guys don't know who that is and you're a Braves fan, I really suggest you go check him out. He is like my favorite follow, but it's because he's outrageous, and I don't want to be that. I don't want to be something that's not true to who I am. I want to be, something that you guys can buy into for sure. So with that said, I do try to provide good information. I do try to provide good quality content and that kind of thing. So if you would, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. Again, guys, we have a very exciting postseason feel series coming up tomorrow. We very well may be live for it. I don't know exactly what the plan is going to be. I will let you know tomorrow morning, probably on the community page, so stay tuned for that. I very well could be doing it. I don't know just yet. We will see. That being said, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. We're not just covering this series, guys. We cover baseball all year long. We cover, we cover the postseason. We cover spring training. We cover the regular season. We do interviews. Again, interviews with all different types of players, whether they be the Braves or not. Mostly Braves, but not all the time. We got interviews with Matt Olson, Kyle Wright, Tyler Matzik, Luke Jackson, Leo Mazzoni, Denny McClain, the last 30-game winner. Kyle Wright's the first 20-game winner this year. We got an interview with the last 30-game winner back in 1968. That is on the channel. There's a lot of good interviews on there. Go check out the community homepage, especially if you're new. It really would be something worth your time, I promise. We try to provide good content. Glad you guys showed up tonight. Glad you guys liked the set. We will be here from now on. We may continue to upgrade things. We may continue to, just get better equipment, better lighting, better things like that. But this is the set for right now. And we will be live from here from now on. So you can expect to see me here regularly now. We are back on a consistent schedule. We've been out for a couple weeks. So I appreciate you guys tuning in now. And with that said, we will see you later right here at On Deck.